From the studios in San Diego, California, this is Frank Fired Up here on the Mixed Up Sports Network, coming to you live here on this Monday, the 12th day of December, 2016. 13 days until Christmas, a big football weekend. Christmas may have come early for a lot of Giants fans, as Week 14 proved to be successful for both New York football teams. The Jets are lucky that the 49ers forgot how to tackle after the fourth quarter began. And the Giants, who had a defensive stand for the ages, and that is exactly what it was. They allowed Williams to score in the first quarter, which had to have felt like a little bit of redemption for him after essentially blowing the game in week one, to get that touchdown in the first quarter. And then after that, it was all Giants, all defense. Beckham scores on that same exact slant route that he scored on against Baltimore. Same exact slant route. I mean, same thing. Cut short of the corner playing off him, cut short of the corner, got to the middle of the field, had space to extend, and extended all the way to the end zone for 61 yards. So you had that from Beckham. You had a somewhat of a decent running game last night. Rashad Jennings and Perkins, both with 15 attempts, both with 45 yards. Didn't look all that bad. Eli Manning goes 17 for 28 with a touchdown, a pick, 2 fumbles. But then you get to that fourth quarter, and that fourth quarter was exactly what the Giants needed. That fourth quarter seemed to have ticked right away. Sorry about that, lost the mic. That fourth quarter, you had uh, that seemed to have ticked right away. I mean, it was incredible how quick that fourth quarter went, and it was exactly the fourth quarter that the Giants defense did what you would have expected out of that Giants defense, which spent so much money. First pick in the draft, a first round pick for the Giants on that defensive front. Janoris Jenkins had an incredible game. Harrison led the way on the rushing attack after that first half, when Ezekiel Elliott ran wild. After that, kind of simmered down. Elliott didn't go much of anywhere. Olivier Vernon was fantastic at applying pressure. So was Romeo, number 78, who took over for Pierre Paul. You saw Kennard everywhere, Collins everywhere, Casillas was everywhere. You saw a lot of guys that were just absolutely everywhere on the defense. And the two biggest plays of the game, forget about the Beckham touchdown catch for a second. The two biggest plays of the game are the fumble by Dez Bryant and the punt that was downed by Harris. Harris was down at the 2. They gave the spot at the 3. But if Harris doesn't corral that ball in and land with that ball on the 3, the game could have been over. or at least Dallas would have had a lot better a shot at it, because they would have ended up most likely on the 20. Because of the way that ball bounced, it looked like it was going to bounce back into the end zone. Harris made a heads-up play to touch, corral, and fall straight down. That play is more likely not going to get overlooked, because when you have a quarterback like Dak Prescott, who, by the way, Dallas fans on Twitter were screaming for Romo in the game during the third quarter. Listen, those are Dallas fans that have absolutely those are Dallas fans that, one, are not Dallas fans, and two, that have no idea what they're talking about. Because do you honestly think that a guy that had absolutely no playing time this year would have been better in that spot than a guy who has played every single game and has led this team on an 11-game winning streak? You honestly think a guy that has taken no snaps would have had you guys better off? You'd have been worse off with Romo in the game. But anyway, when you back a quarterback like Dak Prescott up into his own end zone, that is a bad spot for him to be. That, and the Giants were in gauge 8. They had a ton of pressure, especially in that second half. They had a ton of pressure on Dak Prescott. A ton of pressure. That third down pass that Olivier Vernon forced him to throw away, that was a big play. All set up by the punt and fall by Harris. If that ball bounced into the end zone, Dallas has a lot better of a chance of getting down the field, at least to kick the game-tying field goal. But you backed them up pretty much into the shadow of their own end zone, and then they really were in trouble. And the Dez drop and the Dez fumble, that play would have had Dallas moving. Because Dallas had just come off a couple running plays. They had let me see here if I can get it. Yeah, they had just come off a 4-yard pass to Dunbar. Nice pass over the middle, 10 yards easy first down. And the first catch, and the first and only catch that Dez Bryant makes in this game, is put on the ground. And that was a fumble. Had the catch, both feet down, secured the ball 1 step, 2 step in the process of a third, and then the ball went and the ball came out. That was a fumble. The funniest part of the whole game was that fourth down play when you thought Dez Bryant made the catch on the ground. And it turns out, guess who? Janoris Jenkins again forces the incompletion, and the second they saw it on the big screens at MetLife, the stadium erupted. It was quiet, loud. This puts the Giants in a big advantage right now. Because the Giants will play Detroit, who once again, as we'll go over, once again found a way to win after trailing in the fourth quarter, at Philadelphia versus Washington, and Dallas have to play a tough game against Tampa Bay next week. And I believe they have Philadelphia and Washington just on reverse weeks. at the end for the end of the year. Oh no, I'm sorry. They have the Lions Monday night, week 16. So they play Sunday night this week, Sunday night next week, Monday night, week 16, and then week 17 they play the Eagles. So Tampa Bay, Detroit, Philadelphia. Giants have Detroit, Philadelphia, Washington for the end of the year. If the Giants can win out and Dallas completely crumbles after this loss, and they end up, say, well, if the Giants win out, that would leave them at 12-4. If the Giants go 12-4 and so does Dallas, that means the Giants will have the number one seed in the NFC. Because now, having won both games, the Giants hold the tiebreakers over Dallas. Who, again, last night, just to put a big bow tie on last night, you can look at a lot of things. You can look at how Ezekiel Elliott was shut down. You can look at the Giant defensive line that finally showed up in a Tuck Strahan Umanura-esque way last night. Janoris Jenkins, who proved beyond any shadow of a doubt last night that he is worth every penny of what the Giants paid him this offseason. Same with Olivier Vernon. Same thing with Snacks Harrison. Eli Apple actually played pretty well last night as well. Forget about just the one pass to Odell. Forget about the missed field goal by Bailey, which turned out to be a very, very big moment in the game as the game played out. That missed field goal, 55 yards, that's no chip shot. But that missed field goal turns out to be a huge moment in the game. That is a game that somebody had to lose, and I was expecting all week, I was expecting it to be the Giants. But the Giants come away with a big win. As I put in the description of today's show, a monumental win. This could turn out to be the biggest win of the season. Winners of 7 of their last 8. As I said last week, don't take too much stock in the Pittsburgh loss because everybody loses in Pittsburgh. Detroit is somehow 9-4 after trailing in the fourth quarter seemingly every single game this year. Then they play the Eagles, whose season is done, and then they play Washington, who solid, beat them by 2 earlier this year. And then you get to the Jets, who, as I said in the open, are lucky that San Francisco forgot how to tackle. Because that is the only way Bilal Powell scores the touchdown. That is the only way Petty scores the 2-point conversion. That is the only way Powell breaks free for about 25-30 yards in overtime. That is the only way that happens, is because San Francisco forgot how to tackle. The only reason why San Francisco was not leading that game by 50 at the half was because Kaepernick can't throw. That, or he was throwing it too hard for his receivers to catch. Because he had that problem yesterday too. No press coverage on defense from the Jets at all. No pressure whatsoever on the receivers. Hyde ran wild. Wilkerson was invisible. Richardson was invisible through the first half. Petty was erratic. Marshall was no contest, was not a concern. I will give Petty credit, though. That catch, that pass to Anderson, rolling out to the far sideline, turning around, planting, and then throwing back across the field for Anderson. That was probably the best play of the Jets season. That right there was probably the best looking play of the Jets season because they had a quarterback that actually looked as though he knew what he was doing. Went straight fundamental, plant, throw. Sometimes that's all you need is just to go straight fundamental. Plant, throw. Easy catch. But again, you see it again just in the same way you saw it last week. The only thing about last week was they were playing a top 5 quarterback in this league in Andrew Luck. Top 10 quarterback in this league. This week they were playing Colin freaking Kaepernick. And somehow, some way, the Jets find a way to win a game that they honestly, with the way they played in the first 3 quarters, they had no business winning. To the point where I went on Twitter and I said I don't even want to call them the New York Jets because I don't want to disgrace the state of New York that way. I don't even think Jersey would want them calling them the New Jersey Jets with how bad they've played. But somehow, and again, mostly due to the fact that San Francisco couldn't remember how to tackle, the Jets find a way to pick up a big win. And a big win meaning this win probably, I'm not going to say definitely, I will say probably, saved Todd Bowles' job. Now the question is, what do you do against New England? How do you play New England? That game against Miami just got a lot easier now that Ryan Tannehill is out for the year with a torn ACL. That game got a lot easier. That, and you already beat the Buffalo Bills this year, who are rumored to be firing Rex Ryan today. He hasn't been yet, but... And, I mean, to the point where, why would you fire a guy with 3 weeks left in the season? It doesn't make any sense. Let's let him finish out the year. So the Jets have 2 winnable games out of their last 3. The Giants have 3 winnable games in their last 3. Detroit is going to be very, very tough, but they can beat Detroit if they can limit Detroit's fourth quarter magic. They can beat Philadelphia. They have already. They can beat Washington. The question is, what does Dallas do now against Tampa? What does Dallas do against Philadelphia? What does Dallas do against Detroit? Because first place in the conference is not entirely out of the question for the Giants. They're going to have to run the table, and the Cowboys are pretty much going to have to drop all the other games. But first place in the conference is not out of the question. Just 2 games back with 3 to play. We'll go around the NFL when we return. You're listening to Frank Fired Up here on the Mixed Up Sports Network. All right, we're back. You're listening to Frank Fired Up here on the Mix Up Sports Network as we get set to run through the finals for week 14. We'll run that through to the end of the program. Already know of the Chiefs and Raiders 21 to 13. Steelers beating the Bills 27 to 20. This was a game that was a beautiful game to watch if you are a fan of Le'Veon Bell. The guy only ran for 236 yards, which is the most ever for a Steeler. Had just under 300 all-purpose yards. I mean, the guy absolutely went nuts in the snow in Buffalo. And then you have the story also coming out with this game is that the Giants last week reported that two of the footballs that they had used, or that Pittsburgh had used during their game last week, were underinflated. The NFL has since come out and said the balls were not underinflated. All of them were to spec, which, I mean, hey, you could say, oh, well, it's not Tom Brady, so they're not going to check into it. It's not the Pats, this and that. Listen, I would hate to think that somebody would try to do the same thing after they saw what happened to the Patriots. After they saw what happened to New England, I would hate to think that somebody would be dumb enough to try doing it. It doesn't make any sense. It really doesn't. It would be so stupid, so stupid to try to do something like that after what happened. It'd be so dumb. The Tennessee Titans actually blew my mind yesterday, defeating the Denver Broncos 13 to 10. Trevor Siemian did play, and Tennessee still ended up picking up the win. Home field advantage, I'm sure, probably helped a lot there. But Tennessee does come away with a win against Denver. The Redskins coming away with a victory against the Eagles, 27 to 22. That game, that pretty much eliminates the Eagles from any playoff hopes. It does keep Washington's alive. Now, going through the conference, going through the NFC, 9 wins are not going to get you a postseason spot in the AFL, in the AFC. In the NFC, you have the Falcons are the Falcons are the last team in at 8-5. Then you have Washington, who's 7-5-1, Green Bay and Minnesota, who are both 7-6. Those are really the only other two teams that that you can say have a chance at making it. So Washington helped their cause immensely with this win. For the Eagles, that is consecutive loss number 4. That wow shiny new toy has definitely fallen away from Carson Wentz. Definitely has. Continuing on, the Dolphins beat the Cardinals 26 to 23 on the last second field goal. Again, this is a game that the Dolphins win, but at a major price, and that price is Ryan Tannehill. They lose Tannehill for the rest of the year with a torn ACL. I'm not sure who. And this is after Tannehill went 15 for 20 and 3 touchdowns. So this is huge for Miami, and it's Matt Moore, 9-year veteran out of Oregon State, more likely than not now will take the reins for the Dolphins for the remainder of the season, which again, as I said, made that game against the Jets a little bit more winnable for the Jets. This is most likely going to be the last year for Carson Palmer. The guy just doesn't have it anymore. He's what, 36, 37 years old. He doesn't have it anymore. He really doesn't. You could say it's a. I mean, you could try to spin saying that it's a bad year, but there's a difference between a bad year and just bad. And this year has been just bad for not only Palmer but for the Cardinals. The Vikings beat the Jaguars 25-16. Again, I keep saying it every week. The Jaguars are probably the most disappointing team in the NFL. They play in a division with the Texans, the Colts, and the Titans, a division that they very easily could win or could have won if they had played anywhere remotely close to how they played last year. And now you're sitting at 11-2. You spent the most amount of money in free agency this past offseason because you had the most amount of money in free agency this offseason, and you're 2-11 now with what is looking like is going to be the third overall pick in the draft this year. I mean, that is just unfortunate for Jacksonville. In a game that meant first place in that AFC South, the Texans defeat the Colts 22-17. Osweiler actually performed halfway decent in this game, further proving that the Colts need an offensive line in order for Andrew Luck to do anything. You saw what he can do with an offensive line last week. This week, however, he did not have that offensive line support and only managed to put up 17. The Carolina Panthers defeat the San Diego Chargers 28-16. Out here, you're in a situation now where Mike McCoy could be going. You're in a situation where Phillip Rivers could be going. Mike McCoy cannot be the head coach of the San Diego Chargers coming into next season. He cannot be. Just period. He cannot be. This Charger team has been so inconsistent, and I understand injuries to Keenan Allen, and I understand injuries to other key players. Manti Te'o's out. Joey Bosa left the game in the third quarter. I understand that injuries have plagued this team, not just this year, but last year as well. Mike McCoy cannot be the head coach of this team coming into the 2017 Chargers season. Whether it's in San Diego or LA, it doesn't matter at this point. He cannot be leading this team. He can't be. This team has been so inconsistent. It's unbelievable. The Bengals notch win number 5. They are now 5-7-1 after a 23-10 win against the Cleveland Browns, who once again just looked absolutely complacent. The Bears allow yet another fourth quarter comeback to the Lions, 20-17. Detroit again finding some fourth quarter magic to pull out these games. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers over the New Orleans Saints, 16-11. And then you get to the interesting game. And the interesting game, well, first of all, the Packers beating Seattle 38-10 after 5 interceptions by Russell Wilson. Just a very poor performance. Then you have the Baltimore Ravens playing the New England Patriots this evening. But then you get to the Rams and the Falcons. Probably the most interesting game of the weekend. And I'll tell you why. The Rams, there has been so much made over Jeff Fisher. Over these last couple of weeks, how he has been getting hostile with his how he has been getting hostile with ex-players, how he has been getting hostile with coaches, current players. I mean, on the sidelines, okay? On the 4th, December 4th, Fisher signs a 2-year contract extension. Okay? 8 days later, he is fired as head coach of the LA Rams. 8 days, a week and a day. And as I said with Rex Ryan before, why would you fire a coach with 3 weeks left in the season? This is why. This is why you fire a coach with 3 weeks left in the season. When you are getting into arguments and open confrontations with other members of your coaching staff and players on the sideline during a game, you have to go. Period. There's no oh maybe, there's no oh maybe, there's no we'll let him stick until the end of the season. Something has to get done because the Rams, forget about quitting on Fisher. The Rams never showed up yesterday. They never showed up. And it was not a fact of they weren't showing up because they were ill prepared. They did not show up because they were trying to say something. They were trying to say something, and what they were trying to say was heard loud and clear by Rams management. Why would you give him the contract extension in the first place is the question that everyone's asking. Well, one, you can't expect a team to completely just quit and completely just give up in the way that the Rams did. But at that point, at the point of yelling at coaches on the bench, at the point of yelling at players, getting into open confrontations, having arguments with players and staff on the sidelines, you cannot wait 3 weeks before something gets done. And again, just 8 days after signing a contract extension. 8 days. When I saw that Fisher was fired before, I was stunned. I was sitting there thinking, like, how? How can you 1 week? It's almost like a video game. It's almost like a video game how you sign a player just so you can trade him to get a player that you really want. Although this time they didn't trade anyone. They just let him go. Did it need to happen? Absolutely it needed to happen. Could it have waited? No, it could not have waited. And again, this is a completely different situation to the Rex Ryan situation. Rex Ryan's on the hot seat, and the reason why those rumors are out about Rex Ryan getting fired today is because of his performance over the course of the season, not his behavior. This was made because of his behavior. So a week after the Rams essentially slap Eric Dickerson in the face, He gets his wish, Fisher's gone. There comes a point where you cannot hide it anymore. There comes a point where you cannot sweep it under the rug anymore. And that point is when your team stops playing. Because that is exactly what the Rams did yesterday against the Falcons. They stopped playing. Forget about stopping playing. They didn't even start. They didn't even start playing. Then you get the indictment of your star player Todd Gurley coming out at the end of the game saying, "Listen, this is a freaking middle school offense." Which there was a lot of that yesterday. Antics in the locker room. You had Pac-Man Jones looking into a trash bin to find Terrell Pryor. You had Todd Gurley calling the offensive system that he's in a middle school offense. You had Aqib Talib telling you that he was going to beat Harris up in his agent's office. We have the same agent, so the next time I see him in Atlanta, I'm going to beat him up. Really? Really? My favorite play, though, is Emmanuel Sanders. This week, Emmanuel Sanders scores the touchdown, winds up like a pitcher, and throws the ball at the back wall. Okay? You can spike the ball, you can give the ball into the crowd without a penalty, but if you throw it against the back wall, it is seen as a prop and you get a penalty for it. Really? So you can give the ball away, you can spike it, but you can't throw it. That's smart. I mean, it's all in an attempt to get money. The NFL knows it has an image problem, but it's going about fixing it the wrong way. They have an image problem, and that is their players are uncontrollable, bad people off the field. Ray Rice, Adrian Peterson, that whole 2014-13 year, they want that year removed from the annals of NFL history. And they are still trying to recover from the image problem that has caused. And they are going about it completely the wrong way. Fining players for celebrating in the end zone. You're essentially making these players not have personality. It's okay for players and coaches to have a personality, but when that personality is screaming at an assistant, is screaming at its players on the sideline. Now, there's a difference between screaming instructional critiquing at your players. But when you are in a straight up argument that has nothing to do with the game, on the sidelines with your staff and with your players, something has to be done, and you cannot wait 3 weeks for it. If you want to wait 3 weeks to get rid of Rex Ryan, fine. If you want to wait 3 weeks to get rid of McCoy, fine. If you want to wait 3 weeks to get rid of Chip Kelly, fine. You cannot wait 3 weeks with a situation that is that combustible. And that is exactly what it is. That was exactly what it was. A combustible situation. To the point where the players took action, and like good ownership would, they listened. They saw what happened, and they listened, and they reacted. Like good owners would. Pardon the outside noise. But like good owners would, they responded and reacted. They saw the problem They listened, they saw, they responded. And now Jeff Fisher is no longer a head coach in the NFL. You get now to tonight between the Patriots and the Ravens. This is a big game still for the Ravens. Baltimore wins tonight. They are 8-5, tied with the Steelers for the lead in the NFC North, for the AFC North, pardon me, and tied for third place in the conference. If the Bills run the table, let's just say the Bills run the table this year. 9 wins, going back to the whole Rex Ryan issue, 9 wins is not going to get them is not going to get them into the playoffs. So they are already in the playoffs. Yeah, they're already out of the playoffs because you have Baltimore at 7-5, you have Pittsburgh at 8-5, Broncos at 8-5, Titans at 7-6, the Texans at 7-6, the Colts at 6-7. You are not getting into the postseason this year out of the AFC with 9 wins. It's going to take 10 or maybe even 11 to get you there. But that is a conversation for another day. And with that, we will end the program today. We thank you very, very much for listening. I will see you guys same time tomorrow right here on the Mixed Up Sports Network. I'm expecting to have a guest tomorrow. A guest with a very important announcement tied with it. So I will see you guys tomorrow. Thank you very, very much for listening. Have a fantastic day.